Hi, my name is Henry. In this lesson, I'll be showing you an alternative way to modeling that is not modeling that is not using reference by panel. Okay, if you remember in the previous lesson, we have always clicked on a panel, then drop the panel, and then change the parameters where necessary, the width and the height. Okay, and then later we'll select the same panel and then go to reference by panel and then copyright and so forth. Okay, but in this lesson I will be showing you another way you can also make model the panels without using reference by panel. But I will also advise reference by panel is easier, faster and straightforward. Okay, you can achieve the same aim with reference by panel like what I want to show you now. Okay, so let me delete off all these panels. Now you can actually model by coordinates. Okay, what I mean by that is that you can create the coordinates and then later you draw or sketch in your panels. Okay, now to do that, first of all I will just come here and then I will check the normal grid. If you notice, I have the normal grid, I have user defined grid. Okay, I will check the user defined grid and uncheck the normal grid. And then before I even continue further, it's also good you understand the orientation of the grid of the software. If you notice, you see that the grids are at 500 interval. They're actually 500 millimeter intervals. Okay, so you can see 500, 1000, 15. So the grid interval is actually at 500 intervals. Okay, now if you also notice, you can see the grid. If you have assuming for instance you have a panel that is 4250, you can see that is the width. You can see that it falls outside the regular interval of 500. And again, when you select a panel, if you click the software will always, that is, if you make object snap mode, if you check object snap mode, which by default is checked, if you notice when you click, the software will always snap at the grid points. You can see it's always trying to snap at the grid points. Now, but when you have panels that the dimensions are not in line with the regular interval, remember, as I said earlier, let me also repeat this. If the dimensions are not a regular interval, you can actually achieve the same thing by clicking, of course, drop the panel as we did earlier, and then you come to the width. Let's say the width is 4250. You can see where it falls is not within the regular interval of the grid. Okay, but the approach I'm trying to show you is another approach. Okay, but for me, I always use reference by panel. I don't use what I'm trying to show you now, but it's good you know, so you can actually have a free hand with the software. Okay, before I create my coordinates or the grid lines, as I said before, first of all you need to know that the grid is at 500 interval. Okay, that is the regular grid, but your own grid must not be at the regular intervals. They can actually be anywhere. I will show you that in a moment. And then secondly, you also need to understand, you can see my 0 point starts here. Okay, and then going, it increases. It starts from on the x-axis. This is my x-axis. It starts from 0 on the left and increases to whatever on the right. Okay, so it reads from 0 from left to right. Okay, and then my y coordinates is from top to bottom. Okay, so it's very, very important you understand this. Now, to create my own user defined grid, all I need to do is, first of all, I will uncheck the regular grid. Okay, then I will have to go to tools, and then I will click on drawing grid properties. I will click on edit x-axis grid. I will say append drawing grid. Okay, so I will just add a grid. In this case, if I want to do exactly what we did before, the first grid, here you can see I have my grid line distance. I'm starting at 2000. Okay, and then you can also put the grid name. Okay, actually from the grid properties you can always put the grid name. I will talk a little bit about that later. Okay, but let's assume that this is the grid name is A on the X. Okay, so I can add another grid. Let's make this let's bring it here 2000, 6000. Okay, and then let me call it my grid B on the X as X. I can add another one. Let's call it 9000. Oh, okay, 10,000. Call it C. Now let me add another one that is off. Let's say this one is says 14250. Okay, and it's D. I'll click OK. Now the next I will edit the Y grid. I'll add a Y grid. Let's assume the first one starts at 2000, and then let me call this 1. The second one starts at say 5000. Let me call this 2, and the third one starts at, let's say let me say 8250. Let me call this 3. Click OK. Just click. So you can see I have created my user defined grid. Okay, and if you notice, you can see the last grid is not within the regular interval, it's somewhere else. And if you notice this other one, the last grid is not within the regular interval. So if I want to sketch in my panel now, I'll just go all the way straight. I'll just click between the grids. This is 1. I can right click to repeat the next panel, or I click on the rectangular panel again. This is 2. Click again. Because I have created the grid, the software can now snap at the user defined grids. Instead of going all the way back again, I can just right click and repeat the last command. So that's it. The same aim achieved. Okay, so whichever method is faster for you, it's either you select a panel and then use reference by panel. Okay, and then afterward you can come back and change it. This is 3250. Okay, it's all left for you. So whichever method you deem fit and you want to use, I mean, you can always use it. Either going through reference by panel or by creating the grid first before you can now, sketching your panels. The same effect, once you are done, can create your beam, span, and then create the beam. Okay, that's an alternative way that you can also make the model. And then after this, I can copy the floor. Okay, first of all, I call this my ground floor. Okay, after this I can copy the floor and call this my first floor. Okay, so that is the way it works. But to be honest, reference by panel is easier. One of the reasons why, of course, except if you have to establish the grid and then now sketching the grid, making sure you fall in within the bounds of the grid, because the software will always try to snap between the grid and of course the user defined grid and the grid. Although the grid is hidden, but the software can also snap at the grid. What I mean by that is, let's assume we delete off this, go back to modeling, you pick this, you can see it can still attempt to snap at the grid. Okay, or it can snap at user defined grid. Okay, so that is an alternative way you can also create your model. You can create the grids and then define the grid right away. Now, next thing I also want you to know about the grids is that the software, when you create panel, okay, the software also by itself also creates its own grid. it also create a grid. You see that later when we want to detail the arrangement that we have done earlier. Okay, now the next thing again is that the grid, you can also manipulate the grid. Okay, a very good example, you can manipulate the x-axis. As you have seen, you can add and all the rest, but what I mean is that you can actually change the letters. Okay, that is the grid name. Because if the software is drawing take the BIMGA for instance, it always use to put the grid line numbers, it will use whatever it have as the grid line name, to make the grid line numbers. Okay, so that's the alternative way you can also make your panel, but I always prefer using reference by panel because it's easier and faster. But whichever method you deem fit is all your game, so play it. Okay, thank you for now.